There was a time when that metal tray sliding along the dinner queue wasn't just about food, it was about survival, strategy, and secret pleasures. You'd eye the steaming vats, calculate your choices, and hope the dinner lady would be generous with portions. If you remember trading puddings or sneaking seconds, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and tell us your own dinner hall memories in the comments below. Turkey Twizzlers. Before Jamie Oliver made them infamous, Turkey Twizzlers were the undisputed kings of the school dinner hall. Those spiraled, processed turkey sticks were crispy on the outside, mysteriously bouncy on the inside, and absolutely irresistible to children everywhere. You'd twist them off your fork, savor that oddly satisfying texture, and secretly wonder what made them so addictive. They arrived in the late 80s and became the stuff of legend, every child's favorite, every parent's nightmare. When they were banned in 2005, a generation mourned. Sure, they weren't exactly turkey, but they were pure joy on a plate, and no healthy alternative has ever quite filled that twisty, golden void. Spam fritters. Long before artisanal everything, there was the humble spam fritter, a thick slice of processed meat encased in golden batter and deep-fried to perfection. It was comfort food at its most basic, served with chips and usually some form of tinned vegetables. The beauty of the spam fritter wasn't sophistication, it was reliability. You knew exactly what you were getting: salty, filling, and surprisingly satisfying. Dinner ladies would flip them in industrial quantities, that distinctive pink glimpse through the crispy coating becoming as familiar as the school bell. It was proper working-class grub, unpretentious and hearty, the kind of meal that kept you going through double PE and afternoon maths. Angel Delight. No school dinner experience was complete without the ethereal joy of Angel Delight. That packet of powder transformed with cold milk into something that felt like pure magic, light, fluffy, and impossibly sweet. Strawberry was the classic, but butterfly cakes and chocolate versions had their devoted followers too. You'd watch the dinner lady whip it into peaks and valleys, creating clouds of artificial paradise. The texture was otherworldly, somewhere between mousse and air, and it dissolved on your tongue like sugary snow. Sure, it was basically flavored chemicals and E-numbers, but to a child's palate, Angel Delight was nothing short of heavenly, a fitting end to any school meal. Corned beef hash. There was something deeply satisfying about a proper corned beef hash, chunks of salty tinned meat mixed with potatoes, onions, and whatever vegetables happened to be available. It was peasant food elevated to school dinner status, hearty and filling in that particular way only institutional cooking could achieve. The potatoes would be slightly mushy, the corned beef distinctly pink, and the whole thing held together with gravy that could strip paint. But on a cold Tuesday in February, with rain lashing the dining hall windows, it was exactly what you needed. It wasn't pretty, it certainly wasn't fancy, but it was warm, substantial, and oddly comforting, the epitome of no-nonsense British school fare. Semolina with jam. Before anyone had heard of artisanal puddings, there was semolina, that pale, grainy dessert that divided opinion like no other school dinner item. To some, it was wallpaper paced with delusions of grandeur. To others, it was creamy comfort with a dollop of bright red jam swirled through like edible art. The texture was undeniably challenging, somewhere between porridge and concrete, but there was something oddly soothing about its blandness. You'd create patterns with your spoon, mixing the jam into pink spirals, making the best of this most divisive of puddings. Looking back, semolina represented everything about school dinners: practical, economical, and strangely memorable, whether you loved it or loathed it. Chicken drumsticks. Every school had its legendary chicken drumstick day, when the dinner queue would stretch round the corner and even the pickiest eaters would join the masses. These weren't your Sunday roast variety, they were industrial-strength drumsticks, coated in herb-flecked breadcrumbs and baked until golden. The meat would fall off the bone, the coating providing that perfect crispy contrast. You'd gnaw them clean with the dedication of a medieval feast-goer, grease running down your chin, completely abandoning any pretense of table manners. They were messy, they were delicious, and they represented everything good about school dinner abundance. Paired with chips and beans, a chicken drumstick could transform the most ordinary Tuesday into something approaching a celebration. Treacle tart. If there was one pudding that could unite an entire school, it was treacle tart, that golden, gooey slice of pure indulgence that made everything else fade into insignificance. The pastry would be thick and sturdy, designed to contain that molten treasury of golden syrup and breadcrumbs. You'd approach it with reverence, knowing that first spoonful would be molten lava, but unable to resist. The sweetness was almost overwhelming, the texture gloriously sticky, and the satisfaction absolute. Served with a dollop of custard or ice cream, treacle tart was proof that school kitchens could create magic. It was diabetes on a plate, childhood in dessert form, and absolutely worth every sugar-crazed afternoon that followed. Cheese pie. Long before quiche became fashionable, school dinner ladies were serving up cheese pie, a thick, wobbly slice of egg custard loaded with cheese and baked until golden. It was like a crustless quiche working-class cousin, hearty and unpretentious. The texture was somewhere between scrambled eggs and rubber, but the flavor was pure comfort, salty, creamy, and deeply satisfying. You'd cut through that yellow slab with determination, knowing it might bounce back, but not caring because it tasted like home cooking on an industrial scale. Served with chips and peas, cheese pie was proof that simple ingredients could create something genuinely delicious when prepared with institutional enthusiasm and plenty of heart. Toad in the hole. Nothing quite captured the imagination like Toad in the hole, those fat sausages nestled in a golden Yorkshire pudding batter like sleeping amphibians in a pond. The name alone was pure playground poetry, and the reality lived up to the promise. The Yorkshire pudding would rise around the sausages in magnificent peaks and valleys, crispy edges giving way to soft, absorbent middles perfect for soaking up gravy. You'd dissect it carefully, ensuring each forkful contained the perfect ratio of sausage to batter to gravy. It was British cooking at its most theatrical, transforming humble ingredients into something that felt like a proper feast. No school dinner menu was complete without this glorious construction of meat and batter. Jam roly-poly. The jam roly-poly was school dinner engineering at its finest, a Swiss roll of suet pastry wrapped around sweet jam and steamed until it resembled the logs from some confectionery forest. Served with pink custard, it was a pudding that demanded respect and careful navigation. The pastry would be dense and slightly chewy, the jam molten and dangerous, and the whole thing swimming in that distinctively school dinner custard that was somehow both sweet and slightly chalky. You'd approach each slice strategically, blowing on the jam to avoid third-degree burns, but savoring every sticky, steamy mouthful. It was comfort food from another era, substantial and warming, the kind of pudding that could make even the grimmest February afternoon seem bearable. Liver and onions. Perhaps no school dinner was more divisive than liver and onions, that iron-rich, intensely flavored plate that separated the adventurous from the squeamish. The liver would arrive in thick, brown slices, swimming in onion gravy and surrounded by mashed potatoes that served as both accompaniment and camouflage. For some, it was an ordeal to be endured. For others, it was a proper grown-up meal that made them feel sophisticated. The texture was challenging, the flavor uncompromising, but there was something deeply nourishing about it. Your nan probably approved, your friends probably grimaced, but secretly, quite a few of you discovered that this most adult of meals had its own particular appeal. Rich, savory, and undeniably substantial. Spotted Dick. With a name that caused endless playground giggles, Spotted Dick was nevertheless one of the most beloved school puddings, a steamed suet sponge studded with currants and served with lashings of custard. The texture was dense and satisfying, the fruit providing little bursts of sweetness throughout. You'd hunt for the spots, counting currants like a treasure hunter, while the custard pooled around the edges in golden lakes. It was old-fashioned British pudding at its most traditional, the kind of dessert that connected you to generations of school children who had sat in dining halls, giggling at the name while secretly enjoying every substantial, fruity mouthful. Spotted Dick was proof that sometimes the best things came with the silliest names. Mince and dumplings. There was something deeply satisfying about a proper serving of mince and dumplings, that hearty combination of seasoned ground beef topped with fluffy, steamed dumplings that seemed to absorb every drop of flavor from the rich gravy below. The mince would be well seasoned and substantial, stretched with vegetables and bound in thick, brown gravy, while the dumplings provided soft, pillowy contrast. You'd break through those pale spheres of suet pastry to reveal steamy, herb-flecked interiors, perfect for mopping up every last trace of sauce. It was winter comfort food at its most reliable, the kind of meal that could restore your faith in school dinners and leave you genuinely satisfied. Simple ingredients, expertly executed, and absolutely delicious. Chocolate concrete. Despite its unappetizing name, chocolate concrete was actually one of the most requested school puddings, a dense, fudgy square of chocolate sponge that was somewhere between cake and brownie. The texture was indeed concrete-like, requiring serious jaw work, but the chocolate flavor was intense and satisfying. You'd chip away at it methodically, each chunk releasing rich, cocoa-heavy satisfaction. Served with chocolate custard, it was a cocoholic's dream come true, so dense and sweet that it could fuel you through an entire afternoon of lessons. The name might have been off-putting, but the reality was pure indulgence, proof that school dinner ladies had a sense of humor and knew exactly what would make children happy. Shepherd's pie with crispy top. A proper school shepherd's pie was a thing of beauty, layers of seasoned lamb mince topped with creamy mashed potatoes and grilled until the surface was golden and crispy. The contrast between the smooth potato and the crunchy top was textural perfection, while the meat below provided hearty, savory satisfaction. You'd dig through those layers like an archaeologist, ensuring each forkful contained the perfect ratio of crispy top, fluffy middle, and flavorful base. It was comfort food elevated to art form, familiar and satisfying, the kind of meal that could turn any grey Tuesday into something approaching cozy. When done properly, school shepherd's pie could rival anything from a gastropub, proving that institutional cooking had its own particular genius. Pink custard. No discussion of school dinner puddings would be complete without acknowledging the phenomenon of pink custard, that artificially colored, impossibly sweet sauce that accompanied virtually every school dessert. Nobody quite knew why it was pink, but everyone accepted it as part of the school dinner experience. The color was somewhere between strawberry milkshake and fairy floss, the taste overwhelmingly sweet with hints of vanilla and artificial strawberry. You'd pour it generously over sponge puddings, crumbles, and tarts, creating pink rivers across your plate. It wasn't sophisticated, it certainly wasn't natural, but it was distinctively school dinner magic, the kind of thing that existed nowhere else in the culinary world, making even the simplest pudding feel special and uniquely institutional. Fish cakes. School fish cakes were substantial affairs, thick patties of flaked fish mixed with mashed potato, coated in bright orange breadcrumbs and deep-fried until golden. They bore little resemblance to their fancy restaurant cousins, being altogether more robust and straightforward. The fish was usually unidentifiable but somehow comforting, the potato providing bulk and substance, while the coating delivered that essential crunch factor. Served with chips and mushy peas, they were a complete meal that felt both familiar and slightly exotic. You'd break through that crispy exterior to reveal the soft, pale interior, steam escaping like a tiny edible volcano. They were honest, filling, and surprisingly tasty, proof that school dinner simplicity often trumped sophistication when it came to satisfying hungry children. Manchester tart. This regional speciality found its way onto school dinner menus across the country, bringing a touch of northern charm to dining halls everywhere. A short crust pastry base filled with raspberry jam, topped with a layer of custard and finished with desiccated coconut, it was like having 3 puddings in one. The pastry would be sturdy enough to hold all those layers, the jam providing sharp sweetness, the custard adding richness, and the coconut delivering textural interest. You'd work through the layers systematically, or attack it chaotically, depending on your approach to complex desserts. Either way, Manchester tart was a triumph of engineering and taste, proving that school dinner ladies could handle sophisticated construction projects while delivering maximum child-pleasing appeal in every colorful, multi-layered slice. Stuffed marrow. Perhaps the most adventurous offering on any school dinner menu was stuffed marrow, those pale, boat-shaped vegetables filled with seasoned mince and baked until tender. To many children, marrow was mystery food, something that belonged in fairy tales rather than on dinner plates. But the clever dinner ladies knew that stuffing it with familiar mince made it approachable, even appealing. The marrow flesh would be soft and slightly sweet, providing a subtle backdrop to the more assertive filling. You'd scoop out flesh and stuffing together, creating perfect combinations of mild vegetable and savory meat. It was probably the healthiest thing on most school dinner menus, though nobody thought about nutrition. They were too busy being impressed by the sheer novelty of eating something so exotic looking. Arctic roll. The ultimate school dinner pudding had to be Arctic roll, that cylinder of vanilla ice cream wrapped in jam and sponge cake that arrived like a frozen log of pure joy. Sliced into perfect rounds, it revealed concentric circles of yellow sponge, red jam, and white ice cream that looked like edible art. The contrast between the soft cake, sticky jam, and cold ice cream created a textural symphony that was both sophisticated and childishly appealing. You'd eat it quickly before it melted, savoring the way the different temperatures and textures played across your tongue. It was probably the most photogenic thing ever served in a school dining hall, looking like something from a proper restaurant while tasting like childhood heaven, the perfect finale to any school dinner experience. These weren't just meals, they were shared experiences that connected entire generations of British school children. Whether you loved them or endured them, they shaped our relationship with food and created memories that last lifetimes. If any of these brought back your own dining hall memories, subscribe for more nostalgic journeys and give us a like to keep the conversation going.